Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Shakhandratam Shta He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deen Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostude Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyashta Kripa Sindhubhye Vacha पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंदा हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारणे होल वर्ल्ड तारणे शिल प्रपाद की ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय भगवते वासुदेवाय वासुदेवाय नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीर्यते नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेव्यं भगवत्या उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नष्टकी।
Thank you, Vidit Prabhuji. Hare Krishna Mataji, Satya Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Danu Pranam. Kaise ho aap Mataji? How are you?
He's back. I'm good.
Hare Bol. So we'll be starting with chapter 4. Chapter 4 is Kaṁsa begins his persecutions. So Vidit Prabhuji, do you want to start the reading first?
Yes, Mataji.
Okay, let me just say.
Kaṁsa began his
just 1 second. Persecution.
After Vasudeva adjusted things as they had been before, he carried Kṛṣṇa to Gokula. Mataji, let it continue. Yes, sir. Oh. After Vasudeva adjusted things as they had been before, he carried Kṛṣṇa to Gokula, and all the doors, gates became similarly closed. The gatekeepers awoke and heard the newborn child crying. Kaṁsa was awaiting to hear the news of the child's birth, and the gatekeepers immediately approached him and informed him that the child was born. At that time, Kaṁsa got up from his bed very quickly and exclaimed, "Now the cruel death of my life is born." Kaṁsa became perplexed now that his death was approaching and his hair scattered. Immediately he proceeded toward the place where the child was born. Devaki, seeing her brother approaching, prayed in a very meek attitude to Kaṁsa, "My dear brother, please do not kill this female child. I promise that this child will be the wife of your son. Therefore, don't kill her. You are not to be killed by any female child. The omen was that you are to be killed by a male child. So please do not kill her. My dear brother, you have killed so many of my children who were just born, shining like the sun. That is not your fault. You have been advised by the demoniac friends to kill my children. But now I beg you to excuse this girl at least. Let her live. Let her live as my daughter." Kaṁsa was so cruel that he did not listen to the pitiful prayers of his sisters Devaki. He forcibly grabbed the newborn child to rebuke his sister and attempted to dash her on a stone mercilessly. This is a graphic example of a cruel demon who would sacrifice all relationships for the sake of personal gratification. But the child immediately slipped out of his hands and went up in the sky and appeared with 8 arms as the younger sister of Vishnu. She was decorated with nice garments and flower garlands and ornaments. In her 8 hands, she held a bow, a lance, an arrow, a sword, a conch shell, a disc, a club, and a shield. Seeing the appearance of the child, all the demigods from the different planets like Siddhaloka, Charanaloka, Gandharvaloka, Apsaraloka, Kinakaraloka, Urgaloka presented her with various articles and began to offer their respective prayers. From above, the goddess addressed Kamsa, "You rascal, how can you kill me? The child who will kill you is already born before me, somewhere within this world. Don't be so cruel to your poor sister." After this appearance, goddess Durga became known by various names in various parts of the world. So, Mataji, if I do a brief means how what is explained. So, in the first paragraph, it is told when Vasudeva did the adjustment, like he went to Gokula and exchanged Krishna with the daughter of Yashoda. Then he came to then when he came back to his jail, every door was closed, every person was awake, and when the guards were hearing the sound of the newborn, they just inform Kamsa, and Kamsa just get up from his bed and वो उसके जो उसकी डेथ थी जो उनको मारना चाहता था उसके पास गए. फिर जब देवकी ने उनको देखा अपने भाई को आते हुए तो उन्होंने कंसा से बोला, देखो कंसा, आपने मेरे इतने सारे बच्चों को मारे, वो आपकी गलती नहीं है क्योंकि किसी ने आपको बोला था कि मतलब भविष्यवाणी हुई थी कि मेरा 8वां चाइल्ड आपको मारेगा, लेकिन ये तो एक फीमेल है और भविष्यवाणी में कहा था कि एक मेल आपको मारेगा, तो मैं आपको बस इतना की बस इस मेरी डॉटर को मत मारो, इसको मेरी डॉटर बनने दो. लेकिन कंसा इतना क्रूअल था, उन्होंने देवकी की प्रेयर नहीं सुनी और उन्होंने उसको उठा के एक स्टोन के उस पे वहां पे फेंक दिया, लेकिन वो उनके उससे स्लिप हो गई और जैसे वो अपीयर हुई उनकी 8 आर्म्स थी और वो विष्णु की यंगर सिस्टर थी जो गॉडेस दुर्गा थी. वो बहुत अच्छे से डेकोरेट थी, उनमें गारमेंट्स थे, फ्लावर्स थे, गार्लैंड्स थे और उनके 8 हाथ में एक बो थी, एक लैंस था, एक एरो थे, एक स्वॉर्ड थी, एक कॉन्शियल थी, एक डिस्क थी, एक क्लब थी और एक शील्ड थी. जब जो डेमिगॉड्स हैं जो डिफरेंट लोका के लाइक सिद्ध लोका, चरण लोका, गंधर्व लोका, अप्सरा लोका, उन्होंने इनको देखा तो उन्होंने इनको प्रेयर्स ऑफर करी, बहुत सारे फूल फेंके. तो फिर वहां पे दुर्गा मैया ने कहा कि तुम मूर्ख, तो तुम्हें पता है जो तुम्हें मारना, जो तुम्हारा काल पहले पैदा हो चुका है, तुम इन जो गरीब मतलब तुम्हारी बहन है उसको उसमें इतना क्रूअल क्यों हो. और उसके बाद से जो गॉडेस दुर्गा है वो बहुत सारे नाम से जानी गई.
Krishna, thank you, Vidit Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Sadhya Mataji. Mataji, would you be reading the next paragraphs?
Hare Krishna. Vidit Prabhu explained it so well.
Thank you, Mataji. Yes.
Please click on the light. Actually, day before yesterday night, I met with an accident, and yesterday I had taken 2 painkillers, which had a bad effect on me.
Yes, Mataji. Yes. So, do you want me to read? I can read. Me and Vidit Prabhuji can.
I will
Yeah,
read it.
okay.
Now I'm a little bit better. After hearing these words, Kansa became very much overwhelmed with fear. Out of pity, he immediately released Vasudeva and Devaki from the bondage of their shackles and very politely began to address them. He said, "My dear sister and brother in law, I have acted just like a demon in killing my own nephews, your children, and thereby I have given up all consideration of our intimate relationship. I do not know what will be the result of these envious acts of mine. Probably I shall be sent to the hell where killers of Brahmanas go. I'm surprised, however, that the celestial prophecy has not come true. It is not only in human society that false propaganda is found. Now it appears that even the celestial denizens speak lies. Because I believe in the words of the celestial denizens, I have committed so many sins by killing the children of my sister. My dear Vasudeva and Devaki, you are both very great souls. I have no instructions to give you, but still I request that you not be sorry for the death of your children. Even one of us is sorry. Every one of us is under the control of superior power, and that superior power does not allow us to remain together. We are bound to be separated from our friends and relatives in due course of time. But we must know for certain that even after the disappearance of different material bodies, the soul remains intact eternally. For example, there are many pots for example, there are many pots made of earthly clay, and they are prepared and also broken. But in spite of this, the earth remains as it is perpetually. Similarly, the bodies of the soul under different conditions are made and destroyed, but the spirit soul remains eternally. So there is nothing to lament over. Everyone should understand that this material body is different from the spirit soul. And so long as one does not come to that understanding, he is sure to accept the processes of transmigration from one body to another. My dear sister Devaki, you are so gentle and kind. Please excuse me. Don't be aggrieved by the death of your children, which I have caused. Actually, this was not done by me because all these are predestined activities. One has to act according to the predestined plan, even unwillingly. People misunderstand that with the end of the body, the self dies, or they think that one can kill another living entity. All these misconceptions oblige one to accept the conditions of material existence. In other words, as long as one is not firmly convinced of the eternality of the soul, one is subjected to the tribulation of being killer and killed. My dear sister Devaki and brother-in-law Vasudev, kindly excuse the atrocities I have committed against you. I'm very poor-hearted, and you are so great-hearted. So take compassion upon me and excuse me. While Kansa was speaking to his brother-in-law and sister, tears flowed from his eyes, and he fell down at their feet. Believing the words of Durga Devi, whom he had tried to kill, Kansa immediately released his brother-in-law and sister. He personally unlocked the iron shackles, and very sympathetically he showed his friendship for his family members. When Devaki saw her brother so repentant, she also became pacified and she forgot all his activities against her children. Atrocious activities against her children. Vasudeva, also forgetting all past incidents, spoke smilingly with his brother-in-law. Vasudeva told Kansa, my dear fortunate brother-in-law, what you are saying about the material body and the soul is correct. Every living entity is born ignorant, misunderstanding this material body to be his self. This conception of life is due to ignorance. And on the basis of this ignorance, we create enmity or friendship. Lamentation, jubilation, fearfulness, envy, greed, illusions, and madness are different features of our material concept of life. A person influenced like this engages in enmity only due to the material body. Being engaged in such activities, we forget our eternal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vasudeva took the opportunity of Kansa's benevolence and informed him that his artistic activities were also due to this misconception of life, namely taking the material body to be the self. When Vasudeva talked with Kansa in such an illuminating way, Kansa became very much pleased and his guilt for killing his nephews subsided. With the permission of his sister Devaki and brother-in-law Vasudeva, he returned to his home with a relieved mind. Now, in these paragraphs, it is explained how, after seeing the Rupa of Durga Devi, Kansa got fearful, and then he tries to convince Vasudeva and Devaki that whatever he did was in the influence of the predestined circumstances, and that they should not mind anything, as the pots of mud made of mud are also broken, and the soul is transferred from one material body to another. And so he just asked for forgiveness, and Devaki was also pacified by her brother's crocodile tears, like, and that's what is discussed here. Hare
Yes,
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. Okay. So, Vidit, do you want to read the next one, because you have to go for your tuition after that?
Yes, Mataji.
Okay. Yes.
But the next day, Kamsa called all his counselors together and narrated to them all the incidents that happened that night before, that had happened the night before. All the counselors of Kamsa were demons and eternal enemies of the demigods. So they became depressed upon hearing their master speak of the night's event. And although they were not very much experienced or learned, they began to give instructions to Kansa as follows. Dear sir, let us now make arrangements to kill all children who were born within the last 10 days in all towns, counties, villages, and pasturing grounds. Let us execute this plan indiscriminately. We think that the demigods cannot. We think that the demigods cannot do anything if against us if we perform these atrocities. They are always afraid of fighting with us. And even if they wish to check our activities, they will not dare to do so. Because of your immeasurable strength, they fear your bow. Indeed, we have practical experience that whenever you stood to fight with them and began to shower your arrows on them, they immediately fled in all directions just to save their lives. Many of the demigods were unable to fight with you, and they immediately surrendered themselves onto you by loosening their turbans and the tufts of the hairs on their heads. With folded hands, they begged you to spare them and said, My lord, we are all afraid of your strength. Please release us from the dangerous fight. We have all seen many times that you would never kill such surrendered fighters when they were all fearful, their bows, arrows, and chariots broken, forgetful of the military activities, and unable to fight with you. So actually, we have nothing to fear from these demigods. They are very proud of being great fighters in peacetime outside the war field, but actually they cannot show any talent or military power on the war field. Although Lord Vishnu, Lord Shiva, and Lord Brahma are always ready to help the demigods headed by Indra, we have no reason to be afraid of them. As far as Lord Vishnu is concerned, he has already hidden himself within the hearts of all living entities and he cannot come out. As far as Lord Shiva is concerned, he has announced all activities. He has already entered into the forest, and Lord Brahma is always engaged in different types of austerities and meditation. And what to speak of Indra? He is a straw in comparison to your strength. Therefore, we have nothing to fear from any of these demigods. But we must not neglect them, for the demigods are determined. For demigods are our determined enemies. We must be careful of these demigods, but we must not. We must be careful to protect ourselves, to root them out from their very existence. We should engage ourselves in your service and be always ready for your command. The demons continued to say, Madhya, I'll explain together. Okay. The demons continued to say, if there is some disease in the body which is neglected, it worsens and becomes incurable. Similarly, when one is not careful about restraining the senses and lets them loose, it is then very difficult to control them. Therefore, we must now be very careful of the demigods before they get too strong to be subdued. The foundation of the strength of the demigods is Lord Vishnu, because the ultimate goal of all religious principles is to satisfy him. The Vedic injunctions, the Brahmanas, the cows, austerities, sacrifices, performance of charity, and distribution of wealth are all for the satisfaction of Lord Vishnu. So let us immediately begin by killing all the Brahmanas who are in the charge of the Vedic knowledge, along with great sages who are in the sacrificial ritualistic performances. Let us kill all the cows which are the source of butter, which is so necessary for performing sacrifices. Please give us your permission to kill all these creatures. So, Mataji, in the first paragraph, it is said that when कंसा ने अपने सारे वो के काउंसलर्स को बुलाया और उन्होंने उनको बताया कि पिछली रात क्या हुआ, तो सब काउंसलर्स ने कहा कि हमें जो सारे बच्चे हैं सारे सोसाइटीज के, उन सबको मार देना चाहिए ताकि उनमें से कृष्णा भी और वो भी मर जाए. लेकिन हमें डेमिगॉड्स से डरने की भी कोई बात नहीं है, क्योंकि जो भी सारे डेमिगॉड्स हैं आपकी पावर के सामने तो वीक पड़ जाते हैं. जब भी वो लड़ाई के मैदान में आते हैं वो हमेशा आपको सरेंडर कर देते हैं और आपको कहते हैं कि हम आप पे सरेंडर कर रहे हैं, आप मार देना. और जो तीन वो मेन है लाइक लॉर्ड विष्णु, लॉर्ड शिवा और लॉर्ड ब्रह्मा, तो लॉर्ड विष्णु तो हमेशा सबके दिल में रहते हैं, तो वहां से बाहर नहीं आ सकते. और लॉर्ड शिवा वो वैसे भी फॉरेस्ट में गए हुए हैं तपा करने, मतलब मेडिटेशन में. और लॉर्ड शिवा, लॉर्ड ब्रह्मा, वो हमेशा कृष्णा की मेडिटेशन में रहते हैं, ऑस्टेरिटीज परफॉर्म करते रहते हैं. तो हमें एक और इंद्र की बात भी क्या करें, वो तो आपके सामने एक स्ट्रॉ है. तो हमें इनको नेग्लेक्ट नहीं करना चाहिए, क्योंकि हम ये हमारे एनिमीज है. हमें भी थोड़ा अपने आप को प्रोटेक्ट करना चाहिए, हमें अपने आप को केयरफुल रखना चाहिए. हमें इनकी एग्जिस्टेंस बिल्कुल रूट से खत्म करनी चाहिए. तो और फिर उन्होंने कहा कि लेकिन हमें इनकी पावर कम नहीं समझनी चाहिए, क्योंकि जब आप अपनी सेंसेस को लूज छोड़ देते हो तो फिर बहुत डिफिकल्ट होता है उनको दोबारा कल्टीवेट करना. तो ऐसे ही अगर हम इनको लूज समझ जाएंगे तो अपनी पावर रीटेन करके हमें हरा सकते हैं. तो हमें अपने आप इनको वो नहीं समझना चाहिए. तो सबसे पहले हमें सारे उनको मारना चाहिए, सारे का उसको मारना चाहिए सारे, क्योंकि जब सब लोग होते हैं वो कृष्णा को इवेंचुअली सर्व कर रहे होते हैं, जो वेल डिस्ट्रीब्यूट कर रहे होते हैं, जो ब्राह्मण स्टेडिटीज कर रही होती है, काउ जो मिल्क करती है, वो सब कृष्णा की प्लेजर के लिए करती है. तो हमें इन सब लोगों को मारना चाहिए सबसे पहले. तो फिर वो परमिशन मांगते हैं.
हाँ, yes. Okay, perfect. Actually, the limbs of the
माताजी should I go?
हाँ, yes, with it. Thank you. Actually, the limbs of the transcendental body of Lord Vishnu are the Brahmanas, the cows, the Vedic knowledge, austerity, truthfulness, sense and mind control, faithfulness, charity, tolerance, and performance of sacrifices. Lord Vishnu is situated in everyone's heart, is the leader of all demigods, including Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma. Therefore, we think that to prosecute the great sages and the Brahmanas is to kill Lord Vishnu. Thus, being advised by his demonic ministers, Kaṁsa, who was from the very beginning the great rascal, decided to prosecute the Brahmanas and the Vaishnavas, being entrapped by the shackles of all devouring eternal time. He ordered the demons to harass all kinds of saintly persons, and then he entered his house. The adherent of the Kaṁsa were all influenced by the mode of passion as well as illusion by the mode of ignorance, and their only business was to create enmity with saintly persons. Such activities can only reduce one's duration of life. The demons accelerated the process and invited their death as soon as possible. The result of prosecuting saintly person is not only untimely death, the act is so offensive that the preparator also gradually loses his beauty, his fame, his religious principles, and thus his promotion to higher planets is checked. Driven by the various kinds of mental concoctions, the demon diminish all kinds of auspiciousness. An offense at the lotus feet of the devotees and the brahmanas is a great offense than that committed at the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A civilization that commits such sinful activities generally loses all faith in Supreme Lord, and such a godless civilization becomes the source of all calamities in human society. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the fourth chapter of Krishna. Kansa begins his persecutions. So, in the last two paragraph, it is written that Srila Prabhupada explains that the brahmanas, the cows, the Vedic knowledge, the austerities, truthfulness, all of these are actually limbs of Lord Vishnu. So the demons thought that now if we want to kill Lord Vishnu, we should kill all these limbs. We should kill all the brahmanas. We should stop all austerities. We should kill all the cows, so that Lord Vishnu becomes weak. So that is how Kansa and his demon friends were thinking. So thus he was advised by his demonic ministers to do all these wrong things. That means he was in wrong association and he was receiving wrong advices. So therefore it is also said that it is very important that we have the right association, so that we don't fall into the dark well of material existence. It is further explained, Srila Prabhupada further says that the offending against the lotus feet of the devotees or the brahmanas are greater offense than committing the offense against the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And very nicely, Srila Prabhupada says that a civilization that commits such sinful activity loses all faith in Supreme Lord. And we can see that, and Srila Prabhupada also said that wherever there is animal slaughter, wherever there is no respect for brahmanas and Vaishnava, that society will become that will become a godless society. They will not have faith in God, and there will be natural calamities everywhere. So we can see that in our lives, that how natural calamities keeps on coming. Okay. So Hare Krishna, Sadhe Mataji.
Hare Krishna. So we
Sadhe Mat-
start the next chapter also.
Yes, that's what I was asking. So we've completed chapter 4.
Yeah,
Shall we end with chapter 4 and we can start chapter 5 tomorrow?
we
Or
can do like this
we can
also.
do that also? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Or if you want, we can read some part of chapter 5, but I think chapter 5 we can complete in one day. So maybe chapter 5 we can complete tomorrow.
Yes. There will be more devotees, then we should do that time only.
Yes, Mataji. ठीक है. All right. All right, Mataji.
There is Nupur, I think so. We can see.
Nupur Mataji, yes. Nupur Mataji actually called me in the morning. She was saying that Mataji will listen. And she had some work, so she'll not be able to read. So that's the reason why.
Right. Is that little girl? I think so.
Yes. Yes, Mataji. Yes. Yes.
Okay. Right. And where has Vidit Prabhu gone?
Actually, he had his tuition, so he's just left for his tuition.
He's in which class?
He's in 6th standard.
Right.
Yeah.
Then we can end this one, and tomorrow we